Welcome to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. Every week, I'll be sitting down with a sales executive where they'll share their stories and experiences that produce game-changing results. Let's be honest, sales can be a tough game. I'm sure at some point, we've all delivered a less than stellar demo, been ghosted by a client or two, and sometimes maybe we did more talking than listening. And that's where I can help. The stories and insights our guests share can be applied to your own business, your territory, or with your team, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Our weekly tactics and strategies help you get out of your head and start creating your own path towards game-changing results. Welcome back to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. Now, I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with a professor of professional sales at Weber State University, Blake Neilson, and I met Blake at a conference in Ottawa, and it was the CSES, the Canadian Sales Education Symposium, and he was brought up as a speaker from the US to really share what they're doing as it relates to pitch competitions and how that's having an impact on the students, on enrollment, on sponsorship, and ultimately preparing them for the real world. So he represented the academia and I represent the industry. I was a speaker that talked about kind of best practices in the B2B world. And I really feel that these two worlds have to collide to make sure that when these students get out there, they are accurately prepared. They expectations are clear. And what he's doing in his program, and you'll learn about it when you tune in, is unbelievable stuff. Stuff that, when I got into sales, none of this existed. So I just feel those who have invested in a 4-year sales degree are so much further ahead than others. And so Blake shares with us his passion for really, education and helping others and helping them see in themselves something that they may not initially see. And just that transformation, that evolution from the first day to perhaps midway through the term when they're presenting with confidence, when they're having a really effective discovery, when they're acknowledging objections, some of the activity he's doing, even the soft skills that he really focuses on, which are huge, etiquette after an interview, preparing for an interview. And for me, the biggest takeaway was a lot of times, especially starting our career, and I felt guilty of this too. I was so intimidated by interviews, by speaking with the C-suite. And in our heads, we magnify it and we make it so big and it's the enemy and it's like a 10 of fear. And so he has all these deliberate practice sessions with his team, whether it's pitch competitions, BDR pitch competitions to get the appointment, AE pitch competition to close the deal, interview preparation. He does value proposition or elevator pitches in an actual elevator. So they have a time for 40 seconds. But the point is, when the students go through this, they quickly realize, wow, like nobody died here. This wasn't as hard as I thought. So they're taking action in a safe space with the resources and the tools in order to repeat that and do it in real life. And, even if you're not in school and you're in this AE role or BDR role, how can you take some of his learnings and his approach into your team and really create that psychological safety for them to try new things on, get vulnerable, disarm, in order to get the results you're looking for, but not practicing on your actual prospects. So tune in. You're probably sick of hearing me say this, but I'm always learning. And again, I my eyes were opened at just the extensive topics and focus that they're covering in sales, and they've thought of everything. So I think Canadian universities definitely we're starting, and we have a lot of great ones, which is kudos, but we can definitely take a page from the US folks and see what they're doing and start emulating, because they are seeing success and a lot of the students are now demanding it. So take a listen, let us know what you think, and thanks for watching. See you next time. So I am delighted to welcome Blake Neilson to the podcast, and he is a professor of professional sales at Weber State University in Utah. Welcome, Blake.
Hey, Karen, it's good to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. I had the pleasure of meeting you at a conference up in Canada. I I live here, but up for you, and really valuable conversation. And again, I just want to pass it forward to my audience and really allow them to see what's going on in the U.S. Universities, to give us a chance to emulate the success you're having, and also just get some insights into the caliber of students you're getting through your programs. And again, how can we leverage that for both the students, but also the industry who are looking to hire these people? So I know you're going to provide a lot of value there. But before we dive into it, you have a PhD, which is unbelievable, and you teach professional sales. But where did you kind of cut your chops into sales and gain your experience to want to get and to the academic level and teach it?
Yeah. So going back a long time, I actually was raised on a small farm.
Okay.
And when you're raised on a farm, there's about 300 people in my hometown, about 10,000 cows. So that's kind of the breakdown, right? So growing up, and I'm 20 miles from my school. We're out in the middle of nowhere. I'm in central Utah. And kind of fun. I wanted to be a vet because I saw vets as the opportunity out of my lifestyle, right? That I was raised in. So that was the dream growing up. And so I'm going to school, end up in college. And in college, I had this job going through, it was at a youth home for corrections for young adults, men and women, not young adults, teenagers, I guess.
Okay.
But anyway, part of the process was we'd go out, we'd work with them for a couple hours, and then we'd put a mattress in front of the door and go to sleep for the night. So literally, we were paid to sleep at this job for college, which was great. So you'd go out, you get these, these massive shifts in. And anyways, I was loving it. Like, who gets paid to sleep, right? And anyways, going through, I'm getting a business degree. And one day, just on the job posting, a local insurance company, well, national insurance company, but a local agent says, "Hey, we're looking to hire just appointment setters." So that's how it started. And they said, I don't remember what they posted, but they said somewhere between like $16 to $24 an hour, depending on how well you do, right? And I thought,
Mhm.
oh, that's kind of cool. Like using your time for what I was making at the previous job versus using what you produce for what you make. It just made all the sense in the world to me. So, anyways, I switched from the job where I got paid to sleep into sales. I don't know. That's kind of a
Some people do that
change.
now. That's the sad part.
Yeah, right. So, anyways, and I loved it. Became the top producer in the insurance agency right away. Well, not right away, but within a month or two. Produced a ton of leads, and I negotiated right from the beginning. Like, hey, I'm a college student. My time is valuable. How many leads do you need in a day from me? Okay, and how much are we going to pay for leads? So, it took the previous salesperson 6 hours to do this. If I can do it in 2 or 3, I get paid the same amount and I can just go and do my other stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, we just need the leads. So to me, that was absolutely beautiful because as a college student or anywhere in life, your time is so valuable. So I started there. I was there for a few years, decided not to do that full time. And I decided to switch to another company. And same story. I was able to grow and become the top seller out of about 300 at that company
Mhm.
and got into management. And then at some point, just left the industry to go get my PhD.
That's unbelievable. So it sounds like you learned early on that time is currency.
Oh yeah, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, growing up on the farm, you put in so many hours, right? I mean, as a teenager, it wasn't unnormal to do 60 hours in a week
Mhm.
in the summer on the farm. I mean, the work had to be done, right? And how beautiful is it? I know there's sellers that love hitting, the 60, 70 hours a week. But my beauty of this industry is the flexibility to work out on your own time
Mhm.
and get things done, produce, and still have a beautiful work life balance.
Mhm. And I think, and you were able to realize that early in your career. I think that's the goal for a lot of people now, is to get that balance. I don't even know if balance exists. So, integrating the two to create the life that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And I think we have a changing of the guard of young people. A couple decades ago, people wanted to go out, they wanted to wear a suit, they wanted to put in the hours and absolutely make all the money in the world.
Mhm.
I don't see that same mentality of even sales students now. Work-life balance matters to them even when they're young.
So where do you think that shift came from? Because I would have been in the previous generation where I didn't like wearing a suit, but we had to wear a suit.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
but, we were all motivated by money, and I see the shift too, but I'm just curious, Blake, where do you think the shift is coming from? And do you think it's gonna continue, or do you think the next generation is gonna, again, remodel it and mold it to what their needs and their wants are?
Yeah, I had no idea on the next generation, right? It seems that as companies are now trying to go back to the office to some degree,
Mhm,
it's kind of a standstill of who's going to win, the employees or the employers, right? Who's going to win out? But I will say, for whatever reason, the students, and right now it's super interesting because we have the COVID kids in college. I
mhm,
don't know if that's the term we should say, COVID kids, but it is what it is, right? And the COVID kids, if you remember, when they were in high school, they were given complete flexibility
mhm.
to get their degree done in high school, right? You think about all the exceptions they were given that previous students were not given. So we right now are working through this group of students, and it's almost retraining them how to understand you don't get these exceptions in life you were given while you were in high school.
Mhm. That's amazing. So it's almost like what I'm hearing is it showed them the situation presented itself, as fast tracking, and they took that. Like, remember when I went to school, you could do your, high school, which was 5 years back then, and 4 years if you went to summer school and took all these extra courses, and some people were out in 3 years. And so now they're saying the situation has created that flexibility. People like it, and they're now taking it forward, realizing like what you did in your early days, like you regained control and said, "Well, how many leads do I need?" Like this, forget the timing part because I can give you the output you need, but in the time that I want. And it sounds like the students are doing that now because of what COVID presented.
Yeah, which I think is beautiful in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
If you can learn to be more efficient with less
totally.
time, why not?
And one of the things I say when people say like, "What's such an important skill for salespeople?" is time management. Because when you think about how easily you can get distracted from your inbox, from LinkedIn, but if you can time block and really take control of your time and align it with your energy, like where are you most creative and getting that first 90-minute block out to generate something, like that's when you're going to move the needle. Otherwise, you're taken. And at the end of the day, you're no further ahead. You have your to do list and you've crossed off admin tasks.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, Karen. I don't know your take on this, but we still have the students that are very motivated by lifestyle status,
Mhm.
the big homes, the nice cars.
Yeah.
But I'm also seeing a shift that students don't care as much about that as maybe previous generations.
Yeah.
And so there's different motivating factors sometimes, even for salespeople.
I'm seeing the same shift. So here's like how the $1,000,000 question: how do you motivate everyone, knowing that there is, a dichotomy?
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking for you for this one.
No, the same old Diamond Club trips. Even 20 years ago when I was a young seller at that second company, yeah, a trip to Puerto Rico back
Yeah,
then, absolutely motivating beyond
do whatever
belief.
you want.
Yeah, and it's funny because I still think that young people are motivated by experience, especially the college students, but they might not be motivated by the money metrics that previous generations were. And now that's not across the board. There
Yep.
are still students that are out there, and they want to get to become an account executive as fast as possible. $300,000 a year can't come soon enough. We
Mhm,
still have those,
mhm,
but companies have to find new ways to recruit salespeople because there's not enough of those to just fill all of their hiring needs.
mhm. And so how do you think the role of a sales leader has changed due to that, knowing that they have different levers to pull for different people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the 1 minute manager principle is very important. Understanding to reach out to different people within the team different ways, and I think it's very important to do training individually when you can, as well as just reaching out to your certain salespeople and understanding that your two salespeople aren't going to be the same.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge is that they're still painting them all with that same brush, and what motivates one doesn't motivate the other, and then, they're kind of either putting them on a pip or they don't stay around, and it's just like if you just took the time to get to know them and understand, what is important to them, how they, like to be communicated to, and everything that you're expecting them to do to their prospect, Like it transcends from the way in which you treat them and the experience you provide. And I feel that they're just kind of, they're trying to ramp too quickly and just throw things out the door. And they need not hitting the more button, they need to show them the how button.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I got a fun story about that. So clearly, universities are going to bring back the success stories, and we have many, many success stories. Our program's over 50 years old, a sales program that's over 50 years old,
Yep.
right? So, I mean, we have company leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, just all over the place. And universities, right or wrong, typically bring back the craziest success stories to talk, right?
Hmm.
And we've actually tried to go a little bit not away from that, but try to bring back the everyday seller from sometimes. But anyways, we had one of those typical here's 5 crazy success stories, and they're doing a panel with students, and they're talking about how much they worked, how they become VP of sales, and this many all these things, right? And this girl raises her hands, and she had the guts to say, "Hey, I'm getting into this. I just want a good salary and I want to hang out with my family at night and on the weekend. What all you guys are doing and did was great. I want to know there's a place for me."
Yeah, transparency. I love it.
Yeah, it was beautiful actually.
And did she get the answer she was looking for?
Oh yeah, it actually some of these past students who are now company executives, they actually said it completely changed my
Mhm.
perspective of understanding who I'm reaching out to for
Mm.
some of my talent.
And that's a great voice of the customer. That's what they need to understand. And think about what we use in sales for persuasion as case studies, right? They want to see themselves in that before state and knowing that if I'm going to like is the juice worth the squeeze? If I'm going to go through that, can I expect this? And wouldn't you rather know up front? Again, the answer is going to be different for everybody, but knowing that I'm on the right path, you're proof of it. I'm going to continue. I'm going to be more invested. I think that's great. And it's great for the university to bring back those students so that they can just see that future state because 4 years is a long time, and it's kind of like if you think about that to a long sales cycle, you need those mini wins along the way, those milestone markers to say like you got that advancement, you're still gaining momentum and moving forward even though the close or the graduation is 4 years away. It kind of prepares them to play the long game too, knowing that they're in the right game.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So what are you seeing when you think about, you've been there for 9 years? um, Are there some trends in kind of what the folks that are coming out of your program in terms of strengths? Like are they more curious than others? Are they more do they have better communication skills? Are they, what are you seeing? And maybe this is a hard one to respond to, but like top 2 or 3 things that they're doing that help them in the real world, or even help them get that first sales job. Is there a few strengths that really stick out that you're like, I'm seeing a common trend with these things?
Yeah, that's a good question. And let me state, we have 2 programs basically running at the same time. We have an online program that's mostly continuing ed or, returning students who are a little bit older,
Okay.
and maybe they perhaps need this a degree to make the next step in their career.
Hmm.
Okay. So our students we're seeing in that area, as they go, they're already ready to go. Maybe they just need a degree. They're sitting in an AE and they want to roll into leadership positions. But for the first time students, it's funny, simple things like, so one of the requirements in our program is something as simple as a business communication class, right? Teaching students how to respond after a job interview, those type of
Mm.
things. That just seems the soft skills will always get you ahead in the world, straight up. Like soft skills, I'm sure you agree with that. Soft skills you just need, and they will. You can help over a 4-year degree give students soft skills. But how do you teach the student that it's a small world, that even if it's the employer they're not interested in today, to still follow up and say, hey, I appreciate your time, right?
Mhm.
So I'd say that's what I'm finding. The most important thing is just those, not just soft skills are there, but the little business etiquettes to understand how to, basically transfer from a young person into a career.
Mm. I love that. I always say soft skills produce hard results because they're so like nobody teaches you that. And I would say some people question like, can you teach empathy? Can you teach humility? Can you teach these things? And sometimes it's innate, but you align to it. And that's why I feel some people are better than others. Because for me, sales because I've been in it for so long that the B2B world, I just feel now it's almost like human psychology. And of course, there's stages and there's tactics and there's commitments you have to gain. But it's almost like if you rise above that and you're just listen, like ask good questions. It really comes back to fundamentals. Like ask good questions, listen, treat them well, don't overcommit and underdeliver. Like have integrity. I just feel like we've moved so far away from these table stakes and everyone is trying to put these flashy objects. And it's just like, don't be a jerk.
Yeah. I know. Be
Be
kind.
kind. Like the things
Yeah.
that you were sharing that you say to your children.
Right. It's that I do believe our profession is teachable. I really do. I mean,
Okay.
the beautiful thing about being in education is maybe we get to spend a little longer with students and even like a small train, like, companies might have a 3 month or 6 month onboarding process, but they're learning so much. We get to see students go from their first sales presentation into absolute closers, which is cool to see, right?
Mm,
So that's teachable. And I actually believe that hard workers can come into this profession, introverts, extroverts, doesn't matter. You can find your space in sales and have a great career, period. Yeah. So it's our job to also teach them these other things. Hey, this is how you manage a teammate when you're having an issue,
mhm.
right? It's like small things like that.
But those aren't small things. That unaddressed can lead to, like, even think about if you don't have the coping mechanisms and the mental health associated because you go home and you turn to a vice because you can't control it, and that's those things aren't taught. Like, a lot of what you're giving your students, which is unbelievable, and I think I share this with you, and this is most people in my generation, like, you were given a bag, a quota, and go, and you're like, "I don't even know what to say." Like, I've never been taught anything, and you figure it out, but the fact that you're giving them such amazing foundational skills that will help them, the small things, like, stand out, make a big difference, because as you know now, there's so much noise, and if they don't have that, I feel like they're just gonna get out there and they're gonna blend into the noise.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, so we try to think what can differentiate our
Yeah.
students in the market. We have a class just on team building.
Mhm.
We have a class just on personality profiling,
Mm.
understanding, you know, we teach the DISC models and others to understand, hey,
Yeah.
there's actually, just like there's situational leadership, there's situation relationship building. So,
And how much do you think your students know about themselves? Like when they're doing disc profiles and they're always kind of thinking about from the other person's perspective, how much do they know and do they have an awareness of themselves, their strengths, their areas of opportunities?
yeah, I'd say that that's part of our process is helping them understand that,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Because yeah, that's a beautiful thing about our program and getting to see these young people. You might have a student that's never thought about sales as a career,
Mhm.
and they come into your intro to sales class the next, a week later because a friend says, "Hey, take this class," and you see them completely transform. So that's the beauty of where I get to sit is we get to see those changes happen.
And what are some of those transformations? Like what do they look like?
Oh, you see someone who's absolutely quiet, can never consider their first presentation, maybe if it's even a class presentation, they might even give in a communications class where they're just scared beyond belief to being able to lead a discussion,
Mm.
take people through a buying process and experience, having confidence, right? So I see that we get to see that, and that's why when had the opportunity to meet up in Canada, we believe in our methodologies give students as much experiential learning as possible because our online students I mentioned they're actually typically working in sales jobs already.
Mhm.
We need to give them tools to implement what they're already doing. Our on ground students, we just need to make sure how many role plays can we do, how many opportunities can we give to let you grow.
Mhm. I love that, and I can't wait to dive into the role playing, but just what you said there about that transformation, and I actually taught in the classroom as well for a few years, but what I really loved about it was just that transformation, that before and after, and just like you, and for me, it was just they found themselves, they found their voice, and you could see the confidence developing, and they're 2 totally different people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, this is actually not on the soft skills side, but I have the opportunity to teach what we call sales planning and forecasting, which is business operations for sales students specifically. So we take all the operations of business and actually, how does this affect the salespeople and the sales leaders, right? And you have these students, maybe they learned Excel a little bit in high school. The first assignment we're going through, they don't even know the add function sometime or what a sum is. And by the end, they're going into companies and doing analysis
Mhm.
on what they think should change within a sales
Isn't that
organization.
ridiculous?
That's in 14 weeks.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I know, look, there's always going to be an argument, is education worth it? If you have the opportunity, which is a privilege, to go to a university and truly take time to learn, hopefully you can leverage that to your advantage.
Unbelievable. I wish it was around when I went, but it's just so great to hear that. And think about the companies that are getting. I'm sure they're fighting for students that go through programs like yours, because they know they're coming out of there with that kind of teaching, with the tech stack awareness. Like, that onboarding is cut in half. What is your hiring rate?
Oh,
Yeah, I was going
100%.
to say it's got to be
Yeah.
high
I,
90s or 100.
I mean, there's probably a student out there that hasn't found a job and chose not to.
Yeah,
But I will state, and gotta be a little careful here, but there was a student I probably wouldn't have hired once,
yeah.
and they received two offers, good entry level offers, and I think they've actually had a good career. So it's actually, as long as you'll put in the work in this profession, I think most of the sales programs, at least across the U.S., have close to 100% placement rate.
So, how important do you think it is to be gritty?
Oh, gritty. Yeah, yeah. That's a fun question. Uh, Look, we tell our students straight up, some of our competitions are closing competitions where you're perhaps in an AE role. Your first 3 years on the job, they might absolutely suck. You've got to earn your time prospecting as a SDR, BDR. Go into that understanding your goal is to be growing through the organization where you're doing the presentations and closing 2 to 3 years down the road.
Hmm.
And so we try to set them up for that from the beginning. That's why we actually do an SDR competition now, or BDR competition, because you've got to learn. Like, look, fortunately and unfortunately, I honestly believe the hardest years of a sales career are probably those first 2 to 3 years.
Hmm. Yeah. And what do you say to these BDRs who kind of, it is a tough job, right? It is a tough job. I've never done it. I've done the whole AE role, my whole like full sales cycle. But for those who are like, yeah, I want 12 months and then I'm pushing out to the AE, and it's like just what you said, like, you need to earn your stripes, or you need those reps. And but that glory, and on the other side, it's so everyone paints this amazing picture, and they just want to rush through it and perhaps deny themselves the opportunity for as much expansion as growth that will better prepare them to be more successful in that role. So what would you say to them to kind of just hold them at bay a little bit and just kind of enjoy the process and be realistic about the time frame that they should be in there for?
Yeah. It's funny because we talked a few minutes about how students want this work life balance. I do tell them, hey, the first 2 to 3 years, you've got to throw that advice out the door. If
Yeah.
you want to be an AE, and it's worth it, a 2 to 3 year sacrifice is absolutely worth it to get to where you want to
Hmm.
go. And we do still have students. For example, we placed a student at Stryker. We didn't place them; they found it on their own this summer. Medical device, and that's more of a full sales cycle, working immediately in hospitals with doctors. So we still have students, and there's opportunities like that. But you've got to choose where you want to go,
Hmm.
how you want to sell. Do I want to be in a call center environment? Do I want to be out talking to people? So, yeah, those are hard decisions. It's funny because right now it's not as big of an issue. We have had a downturn with job offers. They're still getting offers, but I no joke, Karen. We literally will have students who might get 15 calls for an interview after one of our interviewing
Oh my
events, and
gosh.
I mean that was a couple of years, and they're just overwhelmed, and so they're in our offices like, hey, should I go with this company or this company? And my thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
You just need to choose one and go to work.
Yeah. But look at the difference now. What I'm seeing is there's one job posting and there's 700 applicants, and they're not getting calls back. So you're getting the inverse of that.
Yeah, so it has changed. I do have, friends and family in other areas. Salespeople can still get jobs. That's not a problem, but it's not as hot as it obviously was.
Mhm.
And these go in cycles. We know this.
Mhm.
Things will change again.
Yeah, for sure. So let's kind of move over to the role playing, because what I love about what you do is the deliberate practice. And I feel so many times, people look at a training script, they read a book, they listen to a podcast, like I got this. And it's like football or any sport. You look at a play, you've never practiced it. You don't have that. Like you actually need to get on the field and swing the bat or kick the ball. And so talk to us about, you have two competitions, one for the BDR kind of SDR, one for the AE. So tell us first a little bit about them, and then we'll dive into some of the results and the expectations around them.
Yeah, for sure. So let me state first, I think it's super important. Most of our sales classes, sales related classes, which we have a few, you're going to have competitions and opportunities to do those in class, right? So I think that just goes with the sales class. You better have opportunities to present, even do like a cold call, all those things. But our entire department, we have the two you were talking about. So we set this up last year, where every fall we're going to have an SDR BDR competition. That it's all about setting the appointment for the AE. So you're going to get a role play. You're going to have so much time. A company is going to come in, or we're going to get individuals from industry to come in, and you're going to present just to set that next appointment. And I think that's crazy critical for our students, because that's going to be the start of their career for many of them. Even
Mhm.
though, as I said, we do have those that do full sales cycle, many of them will start
Mhm.
in a setting role.
And I love that there's an in-class practice, because I feel like to get to that pitch competition, you need to get the practice and just get that nervousness out to present, make mistakes, learn from your peers, that you can carry those forward into the actual pitch competition.
Yeah, and what's cool about the pitch competition, and the reason why I'm so big on internal competitions within your school, and there's actually schools that do more than us as well, right?
Mhm.
Um, but what's important for me is that you finally, in a classroom, you can only get so nervous in front of your classmates or even your teacher. You're now going, and this might be your first ever pitch, where you're going into someone you do not know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a valuable experience.
And what's beautiful about this is it's real life. Like you, this is your, your value prop when you're meeting someone for the first time. You don't know them. You don't have that safety blanket of this is my teacher, these are my friends. And so I feel like it's relevant practice. Even if you're practicing cold calling, like for me, I actually pick up the phone. We don't do it in person because that's not the channel that we're doing it on. If it's Zoom, if it's virtual selling, we're in virtual. If it's face to face, you're in the same room as the person. So for those who make it to the final level in that competition, the SDR BDR, what are they doing to get it? Are they more persuasive? Are they doing it quicker? Like kind of what are the criteria that allows someone to win in that competition?
Yeah, I think what's important for us is to teach them not to miss steps of the sales cycle, especially when they're young, right? And learning as a prospect. So I would say the ones that get to the next step are the ones that are able to ask the right questions and respond the right way.
Mhm.
Because you don't know how they're going to respond, which is exactly how it works in a true sales call, right?
Mhm.
You have to be adaptable.
Mhm.
So our people that come into role play, they understand that they need to give objections, and the winners are those that can, think on their feet and still move through the sales cycle to get the next appointment or the deal.
And those are, and I wrote down TOYF, think on your feet, because when you think about the structure and the framework that you provide to ensure that they are following a process sequentially so they're not missing steps, that's fundamental. But the dancing in the moment part is not. And that's when everything you've taught them, it's up to them now to go like, how do I, this is like the toolbox going like, what do I say here? How do I ensure that I'm being brief yet still answering the question? How do I ensure that my tonality is not that of an interrogation? So I feel like this is where it cuts up to the individual. And this is kind of the art and science. This is the art part that is almost like it's taught, but now it's like, now make it your own and see how good it is, how persuasive, how it aligns, what it does to your audience to move them. So I feel that like that's a really important part.
Yeah, and it's super cool. Just like we said before, it's so fun watching the students because what we do, and we have a hall right over here,
Mhm.
we have 8 interview rooms right lined up together. That's how we designed our building. So we literally bring them all in the hall at the same time. There's 8 students and they all walk in the doors at the exact same time. Okay. And they're sitting there with anticipation. You'd honestly feel like it's a, I don't know, a sport player getting ready for the big at bat, or like they
Yep.
literally feel, you can feel the nervousness on
Yeah.
some of these students.
Yeah.
And then they walk in, and then the best part is when they come out, you literally see, okay, that wasn't that bad. I mean, you remember your first sales call and you
Mhm.
recognize, okay, I can actually do, wait, and I don't know if this is same for you, Karen. I was blown away the first time someone bought something from me. I'm like, this actually works. Are you kidding me? And you get to see that like unravel for these students right in front of your eyes.
Yeah. No, I could feel the energy, just that palpability where it's like the tension. And then the whole thing is, and this is what I teach too, is nobody died from it. Like you probably went in there going, this is going to be a 10 of difficulty. And you're like, you know what, that was like a 3. And it just shows you how do you can control your mindset and just even take control of your belief system, your mindset before going into that. We never really talked about that. But what I love about this is you are painting the picture of a realistic competitive landscape. And when I was in sales, in corporate sales, it was RFPs and we would have vendor after vendor, like just like cattle, like those 8 you'd walk in. So that's a real life setting that you got one chance to differentiate yourself. And this is where you have to rely on everything you taught, leave the nerves and the emotions behind and just be and just do. Knowing that's where confidence comes in going, everything I have is within me.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. So our competition as well. So we have a role play participant that's, the buyer, the potential buyer that they typically don't know. And sometimes it's even the CEO of the company that came to participate in
Okay.
that day.
Okay.
So and these students know that. There's like, holy cow, there's a shot I'm presenting to a CEO today about whether or not they want to change this software.
Yeah.
But they also get a little nervous because they're like, most of the time we have a faculty member in there that's just filling out a rubric to see how they're hitting all the steps of the sales cycle as well as being adaptable as we talked about,
Yeah.
and they're super nervous. What faculty member is in there just grading me as I go?
Yeah.
It's I'd say, I don't know, like different programs around school, like if you're an orchestra, the big symphony, that's your day.
Yeah.
These competitions are our days.
Mm.
It's
I
just
love
really
it.
cool.
But it's so helpful in preparation because again, you're gonna be calling on CEOs, and hopefully what they realize there is that, hang on a minute, this CEO puts his or her pants on one leg at a time as well. Like, they don't have this big because they go in there with this asymmetry of like, I'm just this little rep and they know everything. And that's where that, C-suite fear comes in, and so hopefully they'll realize that, like, that wasn't so bad, like, they answered the questions, I could answer the question, they weren't that intimidating. Because if you don't have that, they just carry that forward, and there's the reluctance to even call at that level then.
Yeah, so then moving to the AE competition, that's where they're more in a closing role. And yeah, they're still going to go through those first steps of the cycle, but maybe perhaps we set up where we've already had them meet the prospect before. So this is to the point where they're doing a true sales presentation
Okay,
and trying to get the deal at the end. So
and how long would those be, the AE ones?
15 minutes, 15-minute role play.
Okay, and when you say a presentation, are they, like, showing a slide or anything or just speaking?
Yeah, so no, there's definitely students are creative. Kind of a fun story. We do a high school competition as well, where we do a competition for high school students to get them interested in sales. I did not talk about that at our conference,
Okay.
but one of the things was for a company that does logistics for semi trucks, all those things, and so they were actually selling a corporate tire plan. One of the high school students brought in a tire on the
Uh-huh.
bus from the high school to
Aw.
our university, and he actually won the competition,
Yeah.
tire in hand. So no, we let students be creative. We definitely say, hey, if you go in with a 7-point deck, and you and I talked about this, you're not there. You want to have materials, but if you have
Mhm.
too much, that's going to be overkill, obviously.
Yeah, you're the material.
You're the material. You need to have them touch something at some point, obviously. You need to have whatever visual you can have, but
Mhm.
it needs to be a combination.
And what that does when you bring it to the high school level, like think about when you talk to people about sales. And I started my presentation with the whole Daniel Pink, the perception, but even high school kids, there's still that fear element, like, I would never do sales. I hate sales. And to see perhaps a bit of a shift here going, like, what do I gotta lose? Because I feel like maybe they haven't seen the Glengarry Glen Ross
Oh yeah.
movie. That maybe I don't know, maybe that perception is still there, but I just had a glimmer of hope there that it might be losing a little bit of its negative stigma if people are investing and going to the length of bringing a tire on the bus, like, that's a good sign.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's actually kind of fun. So, for the first time here in a couple weeks, our university has a summer program that's about 7 weeks for students who excel in STEM fields.
Mhm.
And so, anyways, I actually put in a request this summer. I'm going to pre-test and post-test them. This is seventh, eighth, and ninth graders, or those going into seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. And we're going to do a little thing where they build something real quick and then they sell it. So we're going to actually talk about, okay, here's a career in STEM. STEM is beautiful. If you
Mhm.
have any interest in actually selling what you can create, and so this is our first time doing this. We're hitting a very young demographic this summer.
That's I did that with my kids, and they're 7 and 9.
Yeah. So your kids are already there. Yeah.
But you know what? Because even when I coach now founders, they've developed their STEM, they've developed a product, and not once have they considered the problem it solves or who's having this problem. And they're so attached to the problem, and they're just thinking that people are going to come to buy it. And it's like, who are these people? Like, get in their brains. And so it's just it's fascinating for me to, I guess, because I've been in sales my whole life. I don't think like that. But to think you've never once considered, like, who is my target market here? Like, why would they need this? What are they doing today? Because they're getting the job done somehow. How can I poke holes with it that's going to get that invitation on their end to go, God, something like this would be really helpful. Oh, well, here we go. This is it. But even get that realization from them is the golden ticket.
Yeah. And it's funny because to your point, how many kids, I mean, obviously yours have a leg up already if they decide to do that as a career. But it's interesting because some students, if they tell their parents they're getting a degree in sales, they're gonna be like, "What?
I know.
Like, what are you talking?" Like, they don't understand that we have one of the highest first year salary coming out
Mhm,
of a 4-year degree. And then by year 4 or so, the average is 6 digits. Like, this
mhm.
grows pretty quick.
But even with those parents, what I feel they fail to realize is that everyone is sales. Like, even if you're in a business, if, I don't know, a commerce degree or you're working at a company in some capacity, there's always an element of influence or persuasion. It's not direct sales, but it's embedded in everything we do. And I guess it's got that, like, oh, you failed. If you're going to sales, great. You go into sales when nothing else pans out for you.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, right? But to your point, like, I mean, there's degrees out there if you're going to be an engineer in the
Mhm.
medical field, things like that. Obviously, that's wonderful. Do your thing. But there's many degrees that by even if you took 1 or 2 sales classes, how much would that benefit your career?
Totally. Totally. Well, I took none.
Yeah, right. Because there was none available, right?
But I mean, I went completely different. I have a biochemistry and biology degree, like, completely different. But I would say, if you can take a business degree and one sales course, I feel like you would get the bug and just see, because again, even if you're not motivated by money, there's so many opportunities, to grow. But even when you look at sales as a spectrum, and we talked about this, when you think BDR, SDR, AE, sales, success, customer success, leadership, it's just, where do you do that disc on yourself and say, what part do you really align to? Like, what lights you up? And you can evolve. You don't have to stay in the same role, your entire life. So I think it's versatile, that it's not you get in and you're stuck doing the same thing every day.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it gives you a lot of freedom if you can have that skill set to go in a lot of different spaces.
Mhm. And so those who are getting the striker positions of the world, what are they doing? What are they doing, that the others perhaps, or what are they doing better that the others are not, to get these type of roles?
That's a really good question. And it's not just Striker. We're a tech oriented area in Utah. Tons of opportunity to perhaps go to perhaps some say the sexier companies sometime.
Hmm.
I think they are learning how to network better than the other students. Uh, you know, I see it. I get to see these students and I see the talents they have where they could be successful in most of these companies, most of our students. But the students that are setting themselves apart, it's not that their skill set is that much better. It's that they're able to network and sell themselves to the company. That speed sell we're talking about, where they're
Hmm.
selling themselves, that is crazy important. In fact, I won't mention the company name, but we had a national company that came to recruit once that everyone would know. And the recruiter said they only hired one of our students. And they said, look, some of the resumes weren't as good as we'd like to see, whatever. And they said, the student we found was a needle in our haystack. And I actually said, just so you know, that student didn't even place in the top 10 in our competitions.
Oh,
Yeah, so
wow.
it was kind of interesting to see. But that student did such a good job, an amazing student as well. But was
Hmm.
he the needle in the haystack? No, there was many other students that were at or above their sell skills.
Hmm. Hmm. So I think that's important that if anyone's listening and perhaps they're not at the top of their game, but they have other strengths, like don't lose sight of that because these strengths could be that needle in the haystack that someone's looking for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you can pitch and sell yourself, confidence, once again,
Hmm.
building a connection with the recruiter and the sales manager that might be hiring you, he or she, and understanding that they're a human being as well. It's
Hmm.
it's crazy important, right?
And even your etiquette for the follow up, like I do recruiting as well. And God, the bar is so low. There was people not showing up, people not thanking me, people not sending cards. Like again, I don't know. I would do everything possible to make it impossible for me not to get the job.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. And yeah, I definitely see those little intangibles right there, exactly what you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
going to make the difference if the students get the absolute best offers.
Yeah. And that's great that you're teaching them. Um, Blake, share with us quickly the story you mentioned about your UVP and how you get them to practice their value proposition or their elevator pitch.
Oh, yeah. So one of my colleagues down the hall here, it's a super fun competition that she leads, and yeah, we actually literally take them to an elevator. Okay, and it's kind of fun. She has it figured out exactly what buttons to hit to get at the right time, and they literally get on the elevator. This is separate than these other competitions. They get on the elevator with someone they don't know, and they have close to 40 seconds to pitch themselves on why they'd be a good candidate for the position as they're literally going up an elevator. It's kind of fun.
That's unbelievable. And what is the feedback from the students? Do they find it initially nerve-wracking but helpful, or what are their thoughts
Yeah,
after they
yeah, and I think this is exactly what we're talking about. This is developing the skill set in a
Mhm,
short period of time. You might only have 40 seconds with someone at some point to make
mhm.
that connection we need. So just like the other competitions, they get off the other end of the elevator. Wow, that wasn't that bad. Or at the same time, I said I could do this better next time, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's always a way down, so I can repeat it then.
That's right. Yeah, kind of fun. Actually, we make them walk down the stairs. It's only while they're going up. Yeah,
You if you didn't close, you walk.
that's right.
So if there's people listening and they're just like, "God, I would love to advocate this in my school." Like, what are, like, some top things that they should be doing to really get the voice of their dean or the ears of their dean to start I imagine this is a layered process, but just start the process.
Yeah, it's interesting because being up with you all in Canada, absolutely loved it. And some of the stories that were shared, it's all about, and there's obviously here in the States as well. When I went to school here in Utah 2 decades ago, there was only one school with a sales program, the one I teach at now. That's not the school I went to. And
Mhm,
now all the schools in Utah, all the universities are either building or in the process or thinking about building a sales program. Okay.
mhm,
So I think the biggest thing to do is just start. It's like anything,
mhm,
build a competition. It might be crazy bad the first time.
mhm,
like
mhm.
you might find out that students no show the first time. Depending on who your group is, you might find where you have, I don't know, we had one instance where one of the individuals we brought in as a role player might have not been the best fit. So you just learn and you grow. And It's like if you're in higher ed, in my opinion, you need to build ways to have experiential learning in the classroom. What a way to just start it and get going. As to the deans and motivations, uh, I think many deans, depending on their background, would understand, hey, these sales programs are pretty cool because they typically can bring in lots of money to the college.
Mhm.
These companies that are going to recruit students, once you build the students, they will donate back to the university. So
Mhm.
a lot of times we can find that some of these programs are completely self-funded just through donations.
Mhm. So it's back to the with him. What's in it for me, and money for the dean, and just knowing your audience and what would motivate them to be a partner or to say yes to get the program started.
Yeah, and you and I both know this, Karen. Like anytime you're trying to pitch something up, have the solution ready before the pitch comes, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yep. So, and I think that's just a best practice. I have, we're very lucky here. We have an amazing dean. And if we go to our dean with an idea, how it's going to be funded, what we're going to do, how it's going to look good for him, but maybe
Mhm.
he doesn't have to do anything with our dean, that's going to be a win.
Yeah, but you know that about him, right? So that's where you reverse engineered to align to
That's
his.
right.
Yeah,
Other deans, they might want to be more involved. And if that's
totally.
so, no, once again, we are 1 minute managing all the time with all of our relationships.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, listen, Blake, you are such a wealth of information and inspirational, knowing that what you're doing to help transform the next generation. And just my thing is always elevating the profession of sales because it is a profession. It's something I've done my whole life. I'm really proud of it. And it's great to see the commitment and the level of excellence that you and your colleagues bring. So thank you for sharing everything. And thank you for doing everything you do.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. It's been fun being with you today.
If anyone would like to connect with you and learn more about perhaps Weber, your program, ask any questions, is that okay? And if so, where is the best place that they could connect with you?
You bet. Yeah, LinkedIn, send me a message, connect, be happy to talk.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you again, Blake. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we'll see you next time.